Hi, I'm Patrick Ray with Canopy Boulder. Welcome to Boulder Startup Week and Canopy Boulder's presentation on how to pitch, who to pitch to, and where to pitch in the cannabis industry. So with that, I'm going to start. First things first, how do you pitch to investors in the cannabis industry? It's not too different than how you pitch for investors in general, but through our 11 or 12 different cohorts at over 100 companies, we've sort of refined a process that we think works quite well for investors, and it communicates what you need to as an entrepreneur in a very sort of logical way that investors happily receive. So let's get to it. Again, we're going to talk about how to pitch, where to pitch, and who to pitch to. But let's jump in. How to pitch. So there's a couple different types of investment documents that we're going to recommend that you prepare and that we have all our teams prepare. We're going to talk about key slides. We're going to talk about how you increase engagement. We're going to talk about do's and don'ts, follow-up tips. We're going to talk about the 2-minute pitch because that's a common pitching time that people ask you to pitch in, and then investor communication ongoing. So the first question, and you may be a solo founder, so this is easy, but you may be on a team. The question is, who is pitching? Now, typically the CEO is expected to be the person who's going to pitch. If it's someone else, there just needs to be a good reason, and you may have some questions about why the CEO isn't pitching. But most importantly, everybody needs to know how to pitch, but the person who's going to be spending the most time on pitching is typically the CEO, the person who's going to be leading the fundraise. So let's talk about those investor docs. So we always have an investor pitch deck. This is a deck that you can go send to someone. You can email it or put it in doc send. You might record a screen capture video of you walking through, maybe a Zoom video where you're walking through the presentation for the investors, just to make it easier for them to ingest the information. As an accelerator, we often have a public demo day pitch deck. This is a deck that is it's like very visual. It's not going to have a lot of words or numbers on it. It's about to communicate the narrative that you want to have be received, minus all the financial information. So no financial slide, no investor ask, use of funds, anything like that. Man, it's for public consumption. So these are not accredited investors. You don't want to make public solicitations. Your lawyers will tell you that. Probably not a good idea. Investor leave behind deck. Now, this is your business plan in PowerPoint. This is a PowerPoint, 50, 60 slides. This goes into every element of your business as a business plan would and details them how you're going to do things. So for example, in a investor pitch deck or a public demo day pitch deck, you might have one slide on go to market, but in your investor leave behind deck, you might have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 slides that detail your go to market channels, partners, strategies, hiring structures or processes for these people, and maybe even an org chart. So just know the investor leave behind deck is for the investors who want to go deep into understanding your business more. The executive summary is typically a 1-pager. This is a sort of handout that you can give to investors that you run into. Encapsulates all the basics that you'll need. So these are the 4 docs that we typically ask our founders to prepare. So let's talk about this investor pitch deck. This is the most commonly used presentation. Important thing here is you're still telling a story, right? So you want to make sure that you're telling a story in a great way that's well received. And the only way to do that is to practice, right? Is to tell a lot of stories and get comfortable doing that. The other thing you want to do is you want to utilize slide order to facilitate the storytelling. And we will get into that in the sort of 13 or so slides that we recommend you absolutely have in your investor pitch deck. I said before, you don't want to have too many words, too many numbers on a slide, because anytime there's that on a slide, the attention is on the slide. It's not on you. You are the leader. You're the pitch person. You want the attention on yourself. So make sure that you're making these slides very visual and not sort of, full of details. And then few letters, words, even fewer numbers will definitely be the rule here. So let's talk about these key slides. First, you want to start out with something that grabs people's attention. This is a shocking statistic, a personal anecdote. It can even be a joke. Just you want to make sure that your audience is not looking at this, not looking at this, the phone, they're looking at you, right? So grab their attention. Your job is to keep it through the whole presentation. You very quickly want to transition to the problem. And you don't want to just state the problem. You want to state the problem and turn the knife. Make sure the problem is painful and people understand that it's painful, right? One of the ways you can do that is you can sort of flesh out the size of the problem, right? It's not about like a problem that you feel personally. It's a problem that a large target addressable market feels, and you've got data to prove it, right? So that helps turn the knife and make it super painful. So the audience member, hopefully the investor, is just longing for, they're waiting for what comes next, which is the solution, right? So the solution, if you're a software company, can be an image of the home page. It can be a picture of your hardware, a picture of the product. We always say if you have a physical product, you can always put it on a bar stool with a napkin over it, then take the napkin off. There's some theatrics that are involved that, again, these are all ideas to keep people's attention. Once you've revealed the product, you should quickly go into a demo. If it's a software product, very often you can have a screen capture video running in the background and you can narrate it. But it needs to be quick. It needs to just give people a sense that it's real and that it looks good and it's something that they can sort of quickly check a box that it doesn't look like it's 1995 technology or 1995 design. After you've introduced the demo and this problem, the solution, you've done the demo, you want to tell the people who created this. This is the team. These are the people that have done this incredible stuff, right? And then those people who have created the great product, what also have they done? They've created traction. Ideally, this is with sales or users or demos or whatever the metric is that you want to promote. It's very important to communicate traction to the investors because it proves that it's a real business, right? And even if it is small, it is something. So make sure you tout the traction that you've made. After you've touted your traction, the question that naturally comes to investors next is like, okay, well, how are they going to take this to market next? And so the next point is go to market. So you can see how these things flow from one to another. That's a very important thing. All of these, the order here for the slides is designed to have a natural flow to it. So essentially you're presenting something, you're anticipating the next question from the investor, and then you're presenting that with them. So you are the shepherd, they are the sheep, and you are leading the flock to this grand opportunity that you're presenting. So the next one is go to market. How are you going to get your product or your service into the hands of the customers? They're going to pay mightily for it. After you've talked about how you're going to go to market, let's talk about how you make money. So I have a financial summary slide in here, but the way that I coach the teams to pitch is to say, we make money when, and you talk about your business model. And the financial slide, it's typically a line graph with some bars. It doesn't have to be, revolutionary. I mean, you want to give the investors what they want and kind of what they're expecting to see. But make sure your talking point here is how you make money. If you're talking about things that they don't want to hear about, they're just going to tune out, right? Also in the financial summary, you can often have some key numbers, right? Maybe if you're a finished product company, you're going to have a gross margin, right? So they understand that you have money in this, selling this product that is allow you to market and sell it. You might want to highlight the number of users that you'll have at certain revenue levels along the way, but really it's revenue that I think most early stage investors are interested in. After you've told them how you make money, you got to say, hey, okay, we projected out a few years. You want to say, hey, so what's it going to take? You say, we are raising X dollars on these terms, and we're going to use that capital in these areas, right? So very important when you're doing your investment ask and your use of funds is to make it really simple and engaging. So we really like the hollow circle, we call it the donut, which sort of breaks out your use of funds into like 3 or 4 categories. You certainly don't want to see 9, 10, 11 subcategories. That's a mistake. You want to keep it simple. Remember, just keep it really simple so they can absorb the information in a short amount of time. The other thing that we want to advise you against is putting in a slice for salaries. Now, how do you do that? Everybody's got to be paid to do what they're doing. It's a business, right? It's not a charity. So what do we recommend is that if you have a person who you're going to hire for sales and marketing, put them in the sales and marketing slice. If you're going to have a person who's you're hiring for operations, put them in that operations slice. It all makes sense. It's all very transparent. It's just the truth is investors typically don't like to see that they're paying salaries from their investment. I know it makes no sense, right? It's a reality. People make money for work that they do. That's totally fair and appropriate, but there's some psychology there that we've seen some investors sort of react to. All right, so once you've got all of that presented, you really want to talk about the timeline of the business. This is where you can talk about, what you're going to do with this money. Typically the money you're raising is going to give you at least 12, maybe 18 months of runway, hopefully. And you want to talk about how you're going to reduce risk in the investment, or honestly, how you've reduced risk already in the investment, but then how you're going to reduce risk even more with this capital that you're raising and how the valuation will grow. We get into the weeds a lot in presentations like this. So I like to, near the end, to bring it back up as we're about to wrap up and allow you to talk about your company vision, why you want to change the world, how you're going to do it, what's the motivation, what do you aspire to be, and what can you put out there far into the future that's going to get investors inspired to come along on this journey with you. And then finally, the last slide, very, very important, because this is typically a slide, if you go into Q&A, maybe up on the screen behind you. And so you want to have your 3 reasons to invest included in that slide, along with your contact information. And you want to present it in a way that sort of is a recap. So ideally, you've mentioned these 3 reasons in the other slide some point, right? You've really reinforced those at the time that you bring them up. And so this allows you to bring them back, right? David Letterman used to be great with jokes, right? So he'd have all these jokes written for his show. And then when he got a big laugh on a joke, he would bring that joke back like 1, 2, 3 more times during the show. And it would always get a laugh. There was something about the repetition that really hammered it home. Just made people feel comfortable. But most importantly, at the end of your presentation, you always want to end with thank you. How many presentations I've been to where someone ends and there's just like this uncomfortable silence, and everybody's just wondering, should I clap? Is there something more? Did they, are they okay? It really is a simple thing to do, but it is very meaningful in sort of tying the bow on your presentation and making sure that everybody knows your time presenting is over. So make sure that you do that. Okay, so let's, so intro grabber, stating the problem, making that problem really painful, talking about the size of this problem, the market opportunity that you're going to go after, getting the investors excited to hear about your solution, which you reveal and you give a little demo. Of course, you want to talk about your team and make sure you highlight how the team has been put together for success around this idea, right? But you want to keep it short and sweet. Ideally, you want the investor to think they got it. Right, this team's got it. This team's right for the opportunity. You want to talk about how, as a business, you're going to go to market, how you're going to make money, what capital you need to execute on your plan, and how you're going to use it. Your timeline, vision, 3 reasons to invest. Make sure you're saying we want you to become a strategic investor in XYZ company, and then say thank you. All right, and honestly, all this can be done in 5 minutes. With practice, okay? And practice is key. You want to get the reps in. So let's talk about how you increase engagement. I always say jokes are the right, appropriate jokes are good. Humor makes you human. You don't want to be a clown, right? You don't want to have an inappropriate joke in there, but you should always have a joke ready, honestly, because how many times have you been using technology and there's been some sort of technical problem where the slides aren't forwarding or something's stuck and you got some dead air? There's in cannabis, Google marijuana jokes, and you're going to have any number of them to pick from, and humor makes you human. And I'll be honest with you, early stage investment, there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of relationships development, and there's a lot that goes into making that decision as an investor. And part of that is having some sort of connection with the entrepreneur and feeling like this is somebody I want to spend time with, right? So humor, style, question and response. Remember, I said you're the shepherd, they're the flock, right? Be a good shepherd. We like to use the question and response style, and let me preview this for you. I'm going to go back to the 13 slides. So let's say we grab your attention and you say, okay, so let's talk about this problem. You explain the problem. You're going to see, you turn the knife. You're like, so you might be asking, how big is this problem? Explain that. I'm sure about now you're ready to hear what our solution is, right? So you're setting up the answer. You're setting up the slide that you're going to go to next. So when you go to the team, so you might say, so who's the team doing this? Let me show you right now. And one thing we're really excited about our business is the traction. I'm sure you're interested too. Let's take a look, right? So you're anticipating the natural questions, you're asking them for them, and then you're answering them. So naturally you're positioning yourself as a leader and an expert on this topic, right? So we love the question and response style. I've used it for years, and it can take an average presenter to be a very good presenter instantly just by using it. So I'd encourage you to experiment with that style. Another thing you can do is use dramatic pauses. There's nothing better than silence to bring attention on the person who has the microphone and the spotlight in the middle of the stage that everybody is trying to pay attention to, but is easily distracted in our modern world. So don't be afraid to embrace the silence. Emphasis. There's some things that you want to emphasize in your presentation. We talked about the 3 reasons to invest, right? So during your presentation, you might say something like, hey, make sure you put down your phones because you're going to want to pay attention to this, right? So how can you emphasize things? Either with words, actions. You can take a step closer to the audience. You can put your hands up. You can say stop. You like whatever it is. Make sure that when you're making a point that you want to stay with that audience member, you give it full emphasis. Engaging the audience and asking a question is another way to keep their attention. You just got to make sure you're asking the right kind of question. It's usually like you don't want to ask a question that's kind of like, so how did you feel the last time you entered a dispensary? Instead, you should be like, all right, by the show of hands, who's been in a dispensary in the last 2 weeks? All right, next show of hands, who enjoyed their experience, right? So these are like binary questions, very easy to get audience engagement. It's not something where they're hearing the question and they've got, they want to sit down and type a response, keep it simple. And the last thing is body language. This isn't a good style. This isn't a good style. This is, like you want to make sure that you're not exceptional in the wrong way, right? So make sure that your body language is natural, but it's not distracting. A lot of people, they keep their hands to their side. In your public speaking courses, they might say, keep them here. Practice, get feedback, and do what is natural. All right, so don't forget, these are important. No live demos. I've talked about screen capture videos. We talk about the demo, the reveal. Whatever you do, don't attach your computer to a Wi-Fi network and expect your demo to work live. We've seen too many examples of Wi-Fi dropping out, the software having a bug, the demo crashing, tons of stories of that. So why would you want to put yourself through that? Spend the time to record a screen capture video of your software that you can narrate when you're doing a demo. So please. The other thing is aspect ratios. When you're doing a presentation, make sure you're asking up ahead of time what software they're using. Is it need to be in PowerPoint? Can it be in a PDF? What if you're using Prezi or Google Slides? Is that going to jive? What we found is the aspect ratio is a very easy one to screw up. So just make sure you're using the modern aspect ratio for presentations, 16:9. But always check ahead of time where you're going to make sure that it's going to work out well. Fonts. If you're going to use words and numbers, make sure that folks in the background, in the back, can see them. Most investors are pale, male, and stale, and they can't see, right? So you need to make sure That's why we like the good visuals. We try to keep away from like a lot of little text. It just doesn't work, right, in a public presentation or pitch, a live pitch. Uh, PowerPoint is the standard. Again, if you're going to create your slides in other forms, just make sure you can export them into PowerPoint and it looks good. One of the tricks to make sure you don't get those fonts going sideways on you is to export each of your slides into a JPEG and then just lay those into a PowerPoint slide. Going from Mac to PC, I've seen plenty of times that goes sideways. We don't want you to make that mistake as well. If you're going to be presenting in person at an event, make sure you get there early to get to know the room. This is something that's always served me, and I know it serves our teams, to eliminate as many variables and unknown snafus as possible. It's also nice to get to know the AV people, right? Because you're giving them your presentation and your promise, their promise to you and your hope is they're going to get it displaying up on the screen as you delivered it to them, but that doesn't always happen. So make sure you get to know the room, you make friends with the AV people, you preview your slides. Hey, can you just play it up there and have them toggle through every slide? I mean, hopefully it's not more than like 20 slides, so it should go by quick. Look good. Understand that you're judged. You get on stage, you're in an environment where you're pitching, you're going to be judged. So just make sure you look good. You want to look presentable. You want to look like someone that an investor wants to give money to. Now you want to be yourself, right? But you want to make sure that you look better than you look like on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m., right? So no sweatpants, no t-shirt. Make sure you look presentable and you will be a good steward of investor capital. Okay? And then always don't forget to research your audience. Know who's going to be in the room, or at least the type of people that are going to be in the room, and make adjustments to your presentation accordingly, your standard slides, right? It's very different to be presenting to a VC fund than it is to a couple of angels, right? They're both investors. They both want to invest in the industry. They're interested in you, right? You're presenting it. But if you're investing into a VC, or you want to get investment from a VC fund, do your research on the partners, who's going to be in the meeting, and make sure you understand how your company fits into the portfolio or not, right? There's certainly going to be some Q&A and discussion. It's much better when you can say, actually, so I understand you've invested in these companies, and those are companies we actually want to work with. In fact, we're actually talking to some of them already. So, right, come prepared. There's nothing worse than getting in, doing your pitch, and then somebody starts asking questions like, who are you? Oh, you're the founder. Oh, that's so nice to meet you. When did you start the firm? I mean, these are just questions where, VCs are like, no, thanks. It's not necessarily an ego thing. It's a tell that you're not going to do your research, right? So anyway, those are some things not to forget. So let's talk about where you want to go to get investments. So in the cannabis industry, typically traditional VC funds and private equity firms that might fund a natural products company or a software company or healthcare company, they're not going to invest in the cannabis industry. Nor are true institutional investors, right? Insurance companies, trusts, pension funds, things like that. These funds that are defined as institutions because they live beyond any individual, right, who's managing them. So these two groups, including banks, they're not going to invest in cannabis businesses because the core is federally illegal, and the rest, even ancillary, might be aiding and abetting. It's important to understand they may have interest, but they raise a fund on a strategy and then they need to deploy it, right? So it may be not in their strategy. Cannabis may not be in their strategy, and despite the best pitch, the best charismatic founder, you may not be able to break through that. There's actually a high probability you won't. So the question is, do you want to invest your time on such a low probability of success? I would argue that you want to go to the investors who are going to self-select themselves into investing into the cannabis industry. Oh, one more thing. The other thing to understand about a lot of traditional VC funds or private equity is they have clauses, boilerplate language in their operating agreements, which doesn't allow them to invest in any federally illegal business. This is kind of a very boilerplate baseline language that goes in most funds. So, your chances, if you know somebody working at a big VC or private equity, obviously ask the question up front, hey, is this something you're interested in? Is your funds interested in? If they say no, say, okay, I understand that, thank you. You can always ask if they're personally interested. And that's where we see some investing, some sort of reconnaissance, early investing from managing directors of their funds, putting their own capital in because they feel like in the future they may want to raise a fund and include cannabis. And they go to their investors and they say, I'm going to include cannabis in the future sometime, or they're raising another fund. And the investors will say, well, what do you know about cannabis? And that allows them, making some investments with their own money, allows them to say, well, actually, I made investments in these 4 companies, and I'm actually going to roll them into the new fund that you're going to invest in. So sort of lowers the risk for some long-time investors or LPs to go in those new funds. But that's a little bit getting into inside baseball. So who to pitch? Angel investors. Most of the investment coming into the cannabis industry is from angel investors. This is some older data about investors in traditional VC. And like I said before, the difference is it's more male, it's more white, and it's actually probably older. So pale, male, and stale, right? This is the reality. We're all trying to change the world here, but from a gender, right, and a demographic, racial background. But you gotta understand it is what it is right now, and got to pitch to these people, so it's good to understand who they are. Most of the angels that we've encountered are high net worth individuals who have been successful with their own businesses, or they're doctors or lawyers. It's very typical to the angel investors. So angel investors are good for early stage businesses because they make decisions a bit quicker. You're not going to be necessarily always find a lead as an angel. There may be some super angels who might want to lead you around, but they can definitely fill in the round. And a lot of great businesses in the cannabis industry have been funded by angel investors. So don't feel like angels are not a group that you want to be raising from. Family offices. Whereas angel investors write smaller checks and can move a little faster, family offices are going to write probably larger checks, but move slower because there's a lot going on with family offices, and only one branch of it is really in wealth management, right? So you need to make sure you get to the right people. Ideally, you vet them early, ask the questions like that. Are they investing in cannabis? If they say no, and you do a couple probing questions and it's still a firm no, move on, right? Because this is a group that might take longer, the longest of the 3 primary groups I'm going to talk about who invest in cannabis businesses. That being said, it's their money, so they're going to invest. Now, you might find that an angel that you meet out there, you realize that they have a family office. A lot of times it's been my experience that there's someone out sort of looking around for deals, and it may be a family member, and then they bring it back to the family office. And when they do that, it usually goes into a very more structured process, typical to VC, where there needs to be people signing off on this, giving a thumbs up, whether that's the professional management or certain family members who are going to approve this investment. So just prepare yourself for that when you're going to family offices. And then you have cannabis VC funds. So the number of cannabis VC funds has increased exponentially over the years. When we started Canopy Boulder back in 2013, 14, I think there were like 5. Now, 5 that were actually investing, and there were probably 15 that had websites and said they were raising funds. Now there's many, many more, and we're finding out more and more funds launching every year. We love it, and we have built great relationships with those companies, those investment funds, because a lot of times they look to us for advice and deal flow. Our companies will sort of really working them through the business accelerator, put them through the ringer, so when they get to the VCs, they feel comfortable, confident that they have earned a seat at the table to negotiate and communicate amongst peers. There's good VCs out there, there's experienced VCs out there, there's funded VCs, there's unfunded. You need to make sure that with every investor, you're asking them questions in a very respectful way to vet those investors and make sure they're a good fit for you. But companies like Poseidon and AFI Capital, 730, Salveo, Arcadian, right? They're all very Holly Venture Partners, I mean, there's a list, a big list that we have at Canopy Boulder, and it's growing every day, of folks, and they're out there who've raised money from others and are professionally managing and deploying it. And they're typically the smartest investors. They'll ask the hardest questions. They'll be the hardest to convince to invest. But once you have them on, they can be really valuable for you long-term strategically. So where do you go to pitch? All right. You're an entrepreneur. You've got an idea. You've got a business, maybe early stage, got some traction. So where do you go? Go to Shark Tank? Maybe. I do know of 2 companies in the cannabis industry that have gone on Shark Tank and raised money. It's a whole thing. And I'm happy to talk to you guys about it offline. But pitches aren't necessarily like Shark Tank, but in some ways they are. But yeah, 2 companies have gone through Shark Tank that I know have cannabis roots. I don't think they pitched their cannabis facing opportunity per se, but it was definitely in there. I think one was a fintech and one was like a home grow business. So very interesting. So where can you go? I recommend A Million Cups. This is a nationwide group, 160 locations, basically every Wednesday morning. I think it's about 9 a.m., 9:30. And you get a group of angels or a group of retired business people come in, drink some coffee, and maybe 1-2 companies get up and do their pitch and go through Q&A. There's nothing more valuable than getting reps in on your presentation, getting feedback back, questions, being put on the grill, through the ringer. That's how you get better at pitching. So highly recommend this one, and also because they're everywhere, and you usually can find a way into the schedule. Another place is Meetup. Now, we're in a post-COVID environment, but I'll tell you what, if you want to pitch anywhere and get pitch reps in, going to Meetup and applying to different Meetup events, getting up there and pitch. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than an entrepreneur, pitching their vision, right? And their hopes and dreams and all the work that they're doing when you're talking about startups and investors and entrepreneurs. So get on Meetup and see what's available in your area. My guess is there's going to be a group that is open to you coming and presenting. Shifting from Meetup, which is sort of decentralized and, you might have some good ones, some bad ones, but you definitely get some reps. The creme de la creme is the ArcView group. And we actually, full disclosure, partnered with the ArcView group when we launched Canopy Boulder. They're an investor forum. We're a startup accelerator. It's a match made in heaven, right? And they've been fantastic. Now, historically, they ran 4 to 6 in-person investor forum events every year. In post-COVID-19, they've gone virtual. So they're doing this startup showcase, I think it's every 2 weeks. And the person you want to get in touch with is a guy named Louis Hahn at the ArcView group. These are webinars, companies pitch, there's Q&A. You might have some celebrity sharks or judges who are leading Q&A. Great experience. If you can get on one of these, you absolutely should. Another company group is called Canna Angels. They're out of the Bay Area, as ArcView is. Sherry Haskell founded this group and runs pitch events, has run in-person pitch events. Now they're virtual out of the Bay Area. And, some people may think, oh, ArcView group going digital, it's not the same as being in person. I don't blame you for thinking that. But I will tell you, with absolute certainty, there's more engagement online with investors than there is in person. I have the proof. It's great to see. It's something about going to live events. Sometimes people, they just don't show up, or they show up, but they don't really show up, right? They're not super engaged. They're just sort of going through the paces. When you're online, you show up at the hurdle, right, that you have to get over for communication is pretty low. You don't have to go up and shake somebody's hand, stand in line, wait for them. Maybe they're not extroverts, right? Maybe they're super introverted, but they're super wealthy and they want to invest. Online works. So Sherry's doing online, ArcView's doing online. We're doing online. So this is a picture from one of our demo days in the past. We had a whole room full of investors Well, that's not really happening much now. We ran our last program, and it was a 13-week program. In our 10th week, we went virtual because of COVID-19. So we pivoted and launched an investor hub. And this is, we now have over 500 investors, cannabis investors on the investor hub. We have pitches of our alumni and our companies every couple weeks, and we get those investors to come back. I think we launched with 500, over 300 of those investors have come on and watched pitches or educational sessions, and all of our companies that go on there, they create little data rooms. So everybody's creating solutions for the new normal, including us. And we will also do events that are outside the accelerator. So this is one that we plan to do at South by Southwest, just one of many that we put together to help honestly like highlight startups in local ecosystems. South by Southwest is a national global event, so we had applicants from all over the country, all over the world, and we selected I think 5 or 6 to pitch. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So we're actually we're trying to work on different ways that we can get folks involved now, entrepreneurs, but in this new digital world. So we're actually going to make an announcement soon, maybe when this goes live, about what we're doing with this specific South by Southwest event. AngelList, AngelList has a marijuana startup section, and there are over 1,600 companies in there. I get an alert, and I know a lot of my investor colleagues out there get alerts from this marijuana startup group. So when someone applies or creates a profile in the AngelList group and tags themselves as a marijuana startup, I get an email. So definitely some place to think about dedicating some time. What I'd recommend is that you create a nice profile, you make sure all the links to the company's sites and LinkedIn pages look good, and so does your LinkedIn page, because honestly that's where I'm going to go first. Make sure your website works, because there's nothing worse than getting sort of excited about a company, clicking onto their website, and it totally goes 404. So make sure you're putting the work in so everything looks good on that first impression. ArcView, again, back to ArcView. ArcView has created, partnered with ProSeeder, and they have all their companies that go through ArcView now on the ProSeeder platform, and they have all their investors on this ProSeeder platform. So if you're going to get involved and you reach out to Lewis and think about the ArcView ProSeeder site, because that's going to be something you'll have to fill in. And I've looked into ProSeeder. It's really great. ArcView's doing a good job. And then finally, I think that's finally, yeah. Finally, go to the Angel Capital Association website, look up the member directory, and find out where the angel groups are around you regionally, and those that might apply to you. Maybe your university has an alumni angel group. Maybe there's a cannabis angel group in and around you. Maybe there's an angel group for New York, and you're from New York. Don't fill your funnel, right? Fill your funnel full of investors and investment opportunities, and go through them efficiently and effectively to make sure you're not missing anything, right? Because the truth is, there are a lot of cannabis startups and there's not as many cannabis investors. So you're going to have to work a little bit harder than you might in other sectors to identify, engage with, and raise capital from cannabis investors. All right. So, so what happens then? You've done the pitch, you're in the right place, pitching the right people. What do? Follow up, right? You get the business card, you have the conversation. Don't wait, do it now. Operate in real time, because look, the truth is, raising capital is probably going to take, it's going to be 3 times harder, cost you 3 times as much, and take 3 times longer than you thought it would. So start early. Don't sit on your, don't take a break necessarily. I pitched, I'm going to take a couple of days off. If you have that attitude, you're probably not going to get as far as fast as you'd like. I like the software A-Text. It's a little app that goes on my MacBook, and I can create standard responses. There's other tools that allow you to do this, but follow-up emails, you can standardize most of it. So if you meet a bunch of investors, you can go back and say, A-Text, use A-Text to sort of send off a bunch of emails really quickly and be on top of it. Drive the conversation. Don't wait. Drive the conversation. Tracking systems. I love HubSpot. I love Google Sheets. We used to use Pipedrive. Whatever it is, make sure that you have a system in place to track your engagements with investors. And it's something that your team can have access to as well. Because look, they might go meet somebody randomly, they're an investor. They can come back and see if you are already engaged with them, right? So make sure your team has access and they can always check in, and you're presenting this, tracking every week at your team meeting, say, hey, okay, I met with 10 new investors. We got 4 that we're going to send decks to. We're going to have 3 calls this week. You can see it all here in our tracking system. That's just a good way to communicate all of this. When you're in person, you get business cards, right? Full contact card scanners, like whatever it is, just get it into your system. Don't miss out. When we're in person and I get business cards, I take my pen, and as I'm talking to them, I'm taking notes so that I don't lose that. And then when I'm done, I take a picture, right? How many business cards have we all lost in the travel from here to there, or they fell in between the seat and the car and they're gone? Like, you're like, he or she was the one, and now you don't have it. Make sure you've got systems in place there. Emails, keep them short and sweet. Get to it. Make sure they go out. Be proactive. If you want to have another talk, you want to have another call, or you want to have another meeting, suggest a date, time, and location. Don't say, let me know when you're free. That just puts the onus on the investor. Look, they've done it. They've got the capital. You want to get the capital from them. You want to create a good partnership. Make sure you're proving to them that you're going to be proactive, organized on it. You're not waiting for things to happen. You're making things happen. Virtual assistants, these are hit and miss. I don't particularly like them. I actually have an assistant. She's fantastic. She works from home. She has kids in school. I pay her an hourly rate, and at the end of the month, it's like literally a couple $100, maybe, right? She's just scheduling. She's just, scheduling, setting up calls, and that saves a ton of time. There's nothing worse than the mindful back and forth. It's also, it helps keeps things moving forward. And if you can't afford that, just make sure you're getting on it really quick. Calendly. So these calendar apps, right? Send somebody a link and they choose them. I'll be honest with you, I haven't had a whole lot of success with investors using these calendaring apps because they don't want to do the work. It's better for you to put it on your shoulder and get it over the line because investors, they have a lot of options, and they're looking for, often entrepreneurs are really going to run through brick walls to get it done. So, I used to use Calendly. I have Calendly, but I don't really use it for investors. Okay, so you might have a 5-minute pitch, you might have a 10-minute pitch. I don't think, we do feel that pitches after 5 minutes get a little stale and people lose, they lose their focus. And so we try to keep it under 5, but very often we're going to do 2-minute pitches. So these are quick hitting pitches that collapses that 13-slide outline into essentially 7 points, right? So we're talking about the intro of the problem, getting the tension, talking about the problem. We're going to the target addressable market. We're going to turn that knife, show them the solution, the demo, talk about our traction, introduce our team, and just go straight into this is what we need, how we're going to use it, and then 3 reasons to invest. We want you to invest. Thank you very much. You can get it done. Honestly, when it's really visual, that's a really visual deck, the 2-minute pitch, you can have 20 slides in there. There's a nice thing about having a cadence of going slide to slide to slide that helps keep people's attention. But the truth is, the pitch is not going to secure investment. The pitch is going to inspire questions. It's going to inspire engagement. It's going to get you to the next meeting, which gives you the chance to raise money. So when you think about your pitch, that's what you want to be thinking about, the result you want to have. Okay, let's see. Oh, and then once you have that investor, right, or you have them on a list and you want to keep them engaged, we recommend our teams send out weekly updates. In that, they're updating their company description. Maybe yesterday they were making bread, and tomorrow they're doing skywriting. It's very possible. Pivots happen, right? So you want to make sure you're keeping these investors informed. You want to talk about your product. You want to talk about any changes to your team. Update them on all your fantastic traction, any new sales, any new projections, how much money you've raised to date. If the round is filling up, right, they need to get in. what the terms and the valuation is, and then if there's an ask, right? You always want to ask for help. You want to know that you're not trying to figure that. You want the investors to know you're not just trying to figure this all out by yourself down in your basement. You're actually engaging with your investors. You're gonna need help from them, and people like to help. So anyway, those are investor communications that we recommend. So think about a weekly update. And the nice thing about doing this as a weekly update is that it very easily translates into a quarterly update, right? And your annual update. And trust me, communication wins. So with that, I want to say thank you for the time. And, I'm sorry we can't be in person, but I hope this presentation helped you think about how to pitch, where to pitch, and who to pitch to in the cannabis industry. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at canopyboulder.com. And I wish you all the best in your entrepreneurial activities. Thank you.